don't shoot the messenger. I come in peace, but I want to say something that maybe sounds obvious, but I challenge you to really answer this question. Am I living by it? Most entrepreneurs obviously don't want success if it means their family only gets what's left over. That is totally not the dream. It was never the dream. It was never the intention. And yet, if we're being totally honest, a lot of us are just kind of quietly tolerating a version of leadership that doesn't actually live in congruence with who we say we want to be, and instead does exactly what we're trying to avoid. And we're not choosing it outright. We're not planning for it. We're just kind of letting it happen and reacting to all that comes with it. And just one season at a time, it's robbing us of the opportunity to be fully present with our families and to impact our families through our businesses the way that we intended when we started the thing. And it's just one justification at a time. And what I've personally noticed, because I've walked through this, ask me how I know why this is true. I've noticed that somewhere between I'm building something really meaningful and, the gap to this is just how it has to be for now, or this is just a season, we just stop questioning the structure we're operating inside of. And we start assuming that the cost is just kind of inevitable. It's like the price we pay to run a business. And I actually don't think that that's true. For context, I'm Liz. I homeschool our kiddos. I just had our 6th baby. I mentor founders and I help entrepreneurs really build businesses that give more than they take from their lives so that they can step fully into that calling, into their big next with integrity. And that doesn't mean that I don't work hard. It doesn't mean I don't log the hours or that I never really feel stretched thin, because that would be a complete farce. And it definitely doesn't mean that I have everything figured out. But what it does mean is that I've refused to accept a leadership or business model that required my family to be just the casualty of my ambition, even though I kind of did in the beginning and I had to learn the hard way. So here's what I think is actually happening for a lot of us as founders, especially ones who really care deeply about doing things the right way. We are not burnt out because we are weak, right? We're not even burnt out or overwhelmed because we lack discipline or we have too much on our plates. And we're not conflicted because we're bad at boundaries. I feel like we hear that a lot, but we have boundaries. We are exhausted because we keep trying to lead from a structure and from a place that was never designed to support the life that we actually feel called to live. There's this gap between what we think we're chasing and what we're actually living. And most leadership advice assumes one of two things, right? It's either that your life is infinitely flexible or that the people who depend on you should simply adapt, right? You're a business owner. Your kids should just be used to this, or your spouse should just give you that time. And although there's some element of truth to that, there's a cost, a silent cost that comes with just accepting that as gospel. And I do think when you are raising kids and building a marriage and stewarding your faith and leading a business, that assumption breaks down pretty fast. And you do have to do it differently. You are challenged to do it differently. Your pursuit should not look the same as someone who doesn't have that family depending on them. And what replaces that assumption is this constant low-level nagging tension. And for me, it was guilt, where you feel like you are constantly borrowing from one area of your life to fund another area. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be indebted. And the reason that tension never fully resolves is because we keep trying to optimize our behavior, right? Habits, instead of redesigning our leadership in congruence with those values and in alignment with our leadership style, which is really important too. So this is where I think the conversation really needs to shift. Instead of talking about time management, I've personally found that less than helpful. Have you ever found a time management system that has solved all of these aches that I'm talking about? My guess is probably not. Time isn't the problem. Leadership posture is. How we show up to the problem is. And the question isn't, how do I fit everything in? And that would be more of like the productivity side of things. The question is, what am I orienting my leadership around? Because leadership always organizes life. It just never sits on top of it. And if leadership is organized around urgency or growth at all costs or external validation, which is something I've chased in the past, your family's always going to feel like they're competing with something invisible. They'll never win because you will keep feeling that draw and that pull to all of those things. So the shift that I had to make is moving away from this reactive nature of leading to identity-led leadership. I like strategy. I like being grounded in things that I can touch, right? And plan and put into my planner. So I break most things down into some form of a framework. So everything that I do has to start with identity, not titles. I don't mean that. I don't mean like the role within the organization. I actually mean who I'm called to be in this season. What I actually mean is the identity, like who you're called to be right now in this season. I just had our 6th baby. My identity right now looks different than it will probably 6 months from now or 6 months ago. So what does faithful leadership and staying true to that identity actually look like? And the question then becomes, what does it look like to live that out now? Not just someday when how magically life slows down, because that doesn't happen. And once that's clear, values stop becoming these aspirational things and they start becoming actually pretty structural, like things you live by. We have this beautiful plaque that has our family values. For a long time, those values just lived on the plaque. They were not how I was living. And they were just aspirations, things that sounded good. So I don't ask my business to tell me how my family should function. I let my family rhythms set the constraints that my business has to be built within. Do you see the difference? That choice alone, if nothing else, changes everything because it forces clarity. It exposes just this unnecessary complexity that we weave into our businesses that then ripples into our lives and wreaks havoc. And it reveals where I've been totally over-functioning instead of leading. It also requires humility. Trust me, I've been humbled many times in this process because it means admitting that not everything needs me. It means admitting that I've done it wrong. And from there, simplicity just becomes this North Star. It's just a non-negotiable. I am in a season of give me simplicity all day long. I will take simplicity over success because simplicity is success to me. In the past, overcomplicated so many different things. So strategic simplicity asks, what is the smallest number of things this business needs from me in order to grow well, in order to keep me and my family healthy in every sense of the word? I think that question is really uncomfortable because it totally confronts the ego. It confronts control. It confronts the belief that being needed is the same thing as being valuable. And finally, I shifted into making my leadership around capacity, not being the hero of the story. If the business only works when I'm constantly present and churning and deciding and carrying, that's not leadership. That's fragile. Healthy leadership just distributes that weight, evenly yoked. It creates more margin and simplicity and multiplies that impact without amplifying pressure, which is what I did in the past that really drained me. There's a client that I'm thinking of as I say this. There are many that come to mind, really. And she didn't come to me at that time because her business was failing. In fact, she was probably in one of her most profitable seasons within her company that she'd been running for 20 years. But what she described to me was just like, it was almost like a toothache, right? Like just this constant nagging ache that she was looking at her spreadsheets and seeing her numbers and feeling like she was gaining that momentum and seeing those numbers at the expense of who she was really meant to be. She would say things like, this can't be it. Or maybe I should just cash in and just be home with my family. It was like this big black or white kind of thing where she couldn't figure out how to live in this in-between where she did it well. She couldn't figure out how she was going to live into her successes while also honoring what she said mattered to her. So much to her chagrin in the beginning, what we worked on first wasn't strategy. It was actually her leadership posture. And we had to clarify, all right, what are these like bedrock values you say are most important to you? Who are the people who are getting shortchanged that really matter in the long term, in the grand scheme of things when you look back on your life? Where are the areas where you feel like they're so far out of reach because you've gone too deep in this business? Like they'd require so much of you now that you couldn't even backtrack if you tried without blowing the whole thing up. So we had to really clarify that calling in her and rebuild her structure around that identity. And we simplified really aggressively. We stripped away, we pruned, we slowly transferred weight off of her shoulders And the cool thing was that the result wasn't just growth for her, although it was. You'd think when you strip away, when you take more off your plate, when you simplify, you're making the tough choice to like minimize your business. That wasn't true. She got laser focused. And because of that, without trying, in her mind, she's like, okay, I'm kind of like streamlining things. She didn't realize it was like concentrating the sun through a magnifying glass onto that leaf and making it catch fire. And she told me that she finally, for the first time in her 20 years, her business and her family could coexist. And because of that, she could be present both in her business without feeling that strain or that guilt towards not being with her family, or when she was with her family, she could actually be there, be present mentally. And it was such a win. If you're listening to this and something feels a little bit familiar, I don't think it means you're doing it wrong. I think it means you're an entrepreneur and you're having to figure it out. And it means you've outgrown the leadership model that you've been using, and it's time for that new posture. So you don't need to choose between being a present parent and a CEO, right? And being a founder. You need a way of leading that respects the whole life you're building, not just the visible parts of it, but really thinking deeply and answering these tough questions and gaining this awareness, not because you feel like the only way out is to blow the thing up. It's because you realize, okay, just like some small shifts can make a massive impact, and start living exactly as you're called to live, as who you're called to be. And I know this to be true because I've done it so many times in my life. I've encountered this, and this isn't a one and done thing either. This isn't something like you just overcome and you never have to deal with it again. This is the price of admission. And the benefit for you is in gaining that awareness, you can do something with it. Now, the first thing for me that felt really critical was I had to understand, before I could pick a leadership posture, I had to understand my leadership style. Our brains work a specific way, right? Our personalities need to be assessed. I could give you like a cookie cutter thing that worked for me, but it could be completely against what would work for you. So I created a leadership style assessment that helps you identify that so that you can make the right decisions. It's so liberating. You got to take this assessment. It's down in the description. You can grab it. But that was probably the first step that changed everything for me. I have more content around this coming because I think it's a big battle for so many of us that are trying to juggle these two worlds. And I want to help you kind of bring them together in harmony. And I totally understand it. I'm walking it with you. So I'm just going to share really honestly the things that have helped me along the way. Did you know that I created a free quiz that shows you exactly how you're uniquely designed to lead? I've done this with my clients, and it has taken them from frustrated, feeling stuck, overwhelmed, burnt out, all the things, into their stratospheric stride of growth. This is the insight most founders need but never get. Go to luminaryleadershipco.com/style, or just go to the description. You can take it there. It's a free quiz. It's your roadmap into clarity.